Of course, it's easier maybe to sell a product of a very well-known stallion, but you will sell only quality for a good price. Quality always sells. Of course, on top, you have always the marketing point. You always have what you get out of the horse. Some horses are made. In other hands, you don't know how this horse would have maybe ended up without the marketing strategy, without the possibility of breeding a lot of mares. Some horses never got this chance. Never. So also, like Dr. Nasser told, the gene pool is getting extremely narrow. And some of these horses, they are really also prepotent, not in only passing the good points, but they are also passing the weaker points they have, which is normal. But if you have a whole country full of horses with this weak point, you are in the middle of a big problem. Because how you will come out of this problem again? Because then you fix it, kind of, in your gene pool. It's not easy. So I hope you got a little bit answer on your question.
Yeah, so now we need to do questions and answers.
Yes.
So everybody, if anybody would need to ask a question for Dr. Nasser or Ms. Claudia Darius, he can choose and then say his question.
I would like to know about pigmentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
I
think
we both of us will comment.
First of all, pigmentation affecting the scoring in the show for the horse. What? How percentage?
Percentage is not. Of course, it
if I got you
affects.
a very good horse.
A very good horse shouldn't have a depigmentation.
Okay.
Very good horse. No, I mean, of course, in some lines it appears more often, in others we don't know it at all, and some is caused by nutrition. Some things are inherited, they are just in these lines, it appears more often, but for sure it affects the whole impression on type, because a certain lack of depigmentation, the Arabian horse should have a dark pigment, dark skin under the coat, and so it's kind of a fault, not a major fault, but it's a fault, so it should be punished, and not in head and neck, but of course in type.
Yeah, exactly. We have been seeing recently more of that problem in the shoring, especially unfortunately the Egyptians, the straight Egyptians. And I think this was, well, they blame it on nutrition sometimes they blame it on certain bloodlines. I'm not going to mention names, but yeah, it has become a serious problem. But just like Claudia said, movement, I mean, the pigmentation has no bearing on movement or body but type, because type you take in consideration every single thing, including the pigmentation. The horse has to be black skin, we know that, be heavy pigmented, but if it's a little bit compromised, then you have to deduct certain points, or at least if in the championship this horse is facing another horse of same quality, you pick up the other one and you leave this out.
Some more questions? You want the mic?
Okay, I have two questions. One, judging. Should you judge according to the standards that you know, or according to the current standards of the group you're judging? That's the first question.
Current standard of the group?
Let's take this one first.
For example, you have a certain group.
Yeah.
Okay, when you start,
yeah.
You get the question?
Okay, this is quite easy, because judging on points is judging against the standard, the ideal standard in your head. So you don't measure the marks according to the quality of the class. So an 18 should be an 18 in a strong class and should be an 18 in a weak class. In fact, and this is reality, it's not always like this. So in fact, the quality of the class often matters. The show standard matters. So if you are on a local show or on a title show or a big A show, the points are sometimes very different. It shouldn't be like this, but in fact, unfortunately, it is.
This is actually a very, very good question, and I've been involved in a subcommittee in ECAHO that evaluate all systems of judging over the world and try to come up with a certain new system. And we have studied the Swedish system, the Swiss system, the Australian, the English, the British, whatever. And we came to a certain conclusion, but I'm not going to go through all this. But I'll be willing eventually, maybe in May, and have a little bit of gathering like the ones I do. And I want to talk about this particular point. You are so right. I mean, the two major systems that we are using at this point is the point system and the comparative system, right? You are right in saying that the point system is supposedly, like Claudia said, to be, you judge a horse according to standards. This is the way it was invented. The system was invented by Mr. Maxwell, and this was the reason why they have the point system. However, now this system is being abused. There's nothing wrong with the system itself. It's the way that we are using it that it's wrong. If you look carefully now in any results, in big shows or small shows, you find that actually the judges are judging in 3 or 4 point system, not 20 point system anymore. I mean, type between 17 and 20, the 3 point. Head and neck between 17 and 20, again. Body is like 17, 18, 19, possibly. Legs between 14 and 16. And movement between 17 and 20. So actually we're judging on 3 or 4 point system, which is totally wrong. We should expand that spacing. So we have to revert to another system. The other system is ranking. Ranking is a good system. Actually, in my opinion, it's the best system if used properly and used by several judges, not only one judge. Because, first of all, allow me to say some of the judges are not fit enough, don't have experience enough, they do not have confidence enough. So they stay in an area that we call the safe zone. It's like 18, 19, 18 and a half, maybe not 19, 17 and a half. So they are really not making any statement. In other words, ببداية في النص محدش عارفه. But a horse that I have that deserves 19 in body gets 17 and a half or 18, while a horse with swayed back like this who deserves 16 gets the same score that my horse got. So a judge like this cannot hide in the ranking system, because the rank system you have to put them from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 depending, and you have to show your preferences, so he cannot hide anymore.
My second question is about chiropractic treatment for horses. Some say it's complete nonsense, but others say that you can actually adjust the atlas and the synovial joints. So what's your stand on this?
For the
Chiropractic treatment.
Yeah. I personally have very good experience with it. And I also use it at home from my farm. So especially if you have problems in neck caused by trauma, or also I had a very good treatment on the back of a foal which had a trauma. So I am very positive on this, and I would, yes, very, very positive on this. And I think it can sometimes resolve really problems. You remember I talked about the twisted tail. Some are inherited for sure, but you can also, some of them can be fixed when they did not have it when they were young, when it's just an earned thing, so due to traumatic impact, I am very positive, and I can only from my side recommend this.
No comment, she said it for me.
Next.
Reyes.
It's a small comment about the ranking system, referring to professional breeding. Wouldn't that play into following the trend? If we're ranking, then we're automatically playing into what the group is like, not what the standard is like.
ممكن تقرب الميكروفون شوية.
If you're judging using a ranking system, wouldn't that automatically play into the trend or the group rather than playing against the breed standard?
This is exactly what it's, sorry. This is what's exactly created. The ranking system is only about the quality in that particular group.
Comparative.
It gives you no information about the standard of your horse. It just ranks you, gives you a placing in this one single group. So you want that group, you are the best out of that group. But this doesn't mean you have a good horse.
So is it better or worse?
I love it. I love the system because I can show my opinion very clear to the whole public. I love it, but you know, it doesn't give enough feedback probably to the owners and the breeders because you just get a placing. So it might be not as useful, and it's kind of boring to see during a show because you don't have any marks. You can see the final appearance, but you don't know why. You cannot follow. It's kind of not anymore the show effect, probably.
Right. My breeding question is about basically it's all about for the good of the horse. So we were talking about the horse, the Arabian horse being a war horse, being an active horse, being an athlete. This is the essence of what it is. So as breeders, we shouldn't only be looking for show points, we should also be looking for proper horses. So when constructing a program, how would you say we go about, how would you advise us to go about developing our horses, not just for beauty, but also as animals?
So you mean the selection or the development? The basic selection or how you proceed, having a certain base of horses?
A bit of both.
Okay, so what experience tells is that certain features are very hard to get. Especially good body structure and sufficient leg quality and movements, they are not easy to add in one generation. So my basic advice would be, first of all, go to search for good horses. They should have Arabian type, but they don't need to be exquisite. Go for a good structure horse, and then you can add, in one or latest two generations, you can add this extra little thing. I told you before, add a head, a dishy head in a program is not a hard challenge. The hard challenge is to get good necks, good shoulders, solid croups. This needs generations. And if we have, for example, mares with weak construction, then it's very hard to find a good fitting stallion can improve your program. So the first advice you always get when you start a program is find a good mare. This is a very smart advice, but to recognize a good mare, this is the hard challenge. Because not the champion mare is automatically the good producer. You might have a world champion mare, she will give you nothing. Nothing, because she's kind of a final product, and you will always be disappointed and crying in front of the box when the baby is born. Your neighbor might have a quite ordinary looking mare and is producing one champion after the other out of this mare. So there, for production, there is no receipt. It's not like a cake. You put a little bit of sugar, you put this, you put this, you put this, and you got your proper cake. Breeding is different. Breeding, of course, is based on experience, but it also needs a lot of intuition, you call it. It needs a lot of You need a certain feeling for it. You need also luck, of course. But to minimize the probability of having a weak or a bad foal, you can, of course, follow breeding programs which are already running successfully. But never forget, it's also dangerous because every creature has a different genetic disposition. There are so many possibilities which can come out. When you stay in certain lines, the probability is getting higher that you get a certain product because there is a kind of experience behind with these bloodlines. If you're doing kind of outcross, the probability, in my experience, is higher that you get maybe a super foal, but also to get a very bad product because you're mixing a lot. So this you lose the consistency. And also the famous nick, you will find it also in your book. I found a very nice article on this for you. And so-called nick, this is when you have stallion A always with daughters of stallion B, and it's kind of always working. Sometimes, yes, you have these certain combinations which work fantastic, and then what you do? Stallion C. So you have to find stallion C for these A-B mares. And this is a very difficult task and mostly never work. Then you try, and this is the next step many people do, they breed these A-B mares with A-B stallions with the same bloodline, kind of a line breeding. Also this is dangerous. So there are certain approaches which you can follow, but you can never give a guarantee. Successful breeding programs are based really on this kind of experience. But the advice I can give you, search for every single mare, and not because you have the stallion at home cover with this stallion. The stallion can get a chance for 1 year, try him, look what he is producing. But try to find for every mare the fitting stallion. The best stallion you can have is no stallion at home. Because not here in Egypt, it was a particular, also different situation. No? But I talk for Europe, where we have the possibility of getting semen from every stallion we want to breed to. Then buy the semen from the stallion, and this doesn't need to be the world champion X. So buy the semen where you are convinced the stallion can contribute to avoid the weaker points of your mare. This means, first of all, you have to recognize the weak points of your mare very honestly and very frankly. Be your number one critical person. So find the weak points and then try to find a stallion can maybe compensate these weak points. But if this works, nobody can guarantee you. But you just reduce the risk and you increase the probability of having the desired result. And then, luck and everything, it should be with you, and then hopefully... Also, if you mate the same horses again and you have full siblings, they can be totally different, but totally different. Has nothing to do with each other. So you can see how much consistent there is in breeding, not too much.
No, I have nothing else to add on this. As I said, the breeder is basically the selector, and I keep repeating this because I really believe in it. And it has to have, or the breeder has to have a little bit of artistic tendencies and appreciation of lines, curves, harmony, so that really you can pick up your horses that you want to breed. It's interesting to see how I did a little bit of reading and study on this, and I had them in a lecture where how did art and poem أثناء الجاهلية وما بعد الإسلام that were describing the horses, متلبي وعنترة وغيرهم. How did these poems on art and now photography have really affected the type that we are breeding, you'll be surprised. I mean, if you look at the horses the Orientalists drove and baited, at that time these horses